Sometimes the most powerful moments unfold in the quietest places, a bank branch, a customer line, a routine transaction. But every so often, within those everyday settings, something extraordinary happens, something that challenges assumptions, reveals hidden biases, and shifts the energy of an entire room. This is not just a story about a customer at the bank. It's a story about dignity under pressure, about what happens when quiet confidence meets loud prejudice, and how one woman's silence spoke louder than 1,000 protests. What you're about to hear begins like any other Tuesday morning, but by the time it ends, the entire branch will be standing still, and one voice will rise without ever needing to shout. Let's begin. Exactly where it all started, with a confident black woman walking into a downtown bank, simply to make a business transaction. A confident black woman enters a downtown bank for a business transaction. It was just another busy morning in the heart of the city. The usual weekday buzz surrounded the streets, horns honking, hurried footsteps, and the rhythmic clicking of heels echoing on the pavement. Inside the grand glass-walled bank branch on 6th and Monroe, life moved with the predictable rhythm of finance transactions, approvals, polite nods, and endless queues. At precisely 10:03 a.m., she walked in. Alicia Carter, she wasn't someone who demanded attention with flash, but rather with quiet command. Dressed in a tailored gray blazer, her every step spoke confidence and composure. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek twist, her makeup minimal, her leather briefcase hugged neatly under one arm. As she entered, a few heads subtly turned, not because of how she looked, but because of how she carried herself. She wasn't there to make noise, she was there to handle business. She glanced around the bank briefly before stepping into line, surveying the room with practiced ease. To most, she might have seemed like just another professional woman handling her day. But to those paying close attention, there was something unmistakable about her energy, sharp, alert, prepared. As she waited her turn, Alicia didn't fidget, didn't scroll through her phone. She stood poised, calm, and unbothered by the ticking of the clock. She wasn't just here to cash a check or pay a bill. This visit was purposeful, specific. She was here to conduct a transaction on one of her business accounts. But more than that, she was here to quietly observe, to take mental notes. She was prepared for a typical transaction. She wasn't prepared for what came next. The bank teller, Karen, immediately treats her with suspicion and disrespect. Finally, the queue moved forward. The customer in front of her stepped away, and Alicia approached the next available counter. Teller 3, manned by a woman with a stiff posture and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her name tag read Karen. Karen didn't look up right away. Her nails tapped impatiently against the counter as she muttered something under her breath and continued typing. Alicia waited a moment, then politely offered a smile and said, "Good morning." Karen's eyes flicked upward, scanning Alicia in a single glance, starting from her heels and ending at her face. The change was instant. The casual annoyance shifted into something colder, more guarded. With a flat tone, Karen asked, "Yes." There was no warmth, no customer service charm, just suspicion disguised as routine. Alicia opened her briefcase and handed over an envelope and her identification. "I'm here to make a transaction on my account." Karen didn't move to accept it. Instead, she narrowed her eyes. "Do you have an account with us?" she asked, louder than necessary, as if trying to make sure others could hear. A few people in the line turned their heads slightly. Alicia remained calm. "Yes, the details are inside the envelope." Karen finally picked it up, but not before pursing her lips and letting out a sigh. She opened the envelope, glanced at the ID, and raised an eyebrow. "This is for a business account." "Yes," Alicia replied evenly. Karen scoffed softly, as if amused. "Well, we don't normally handle business-level transactions here. You might want to try online banking or maybe schedule an appointment next time. These lines are for standard customers." Alicia blinked, holding back a breath. She wasn't new to this kind of interaction, but it still stung every time. The implication was clear: you don't belong here, you must be mistaken. Despite the polished suit, the professional tone, and the clear credentials, Karen had already made up her mind. This wasn't about procedure. This was prejudice wrapped neatly in bank policy. The atmosphere in the bank grew quieter. A few more eyes lingered on the exchange. Karen crossed her arms with smug assurance, fully expecting Alicia to back down or get flustered. But Alicia didn't flinch. Instead, her fingers slowly moved back to her briefcase. Something was about to change, and neither Karen nor the rest of the branch was ready for it. Karen questions the legitimacy of the woman's account and business status. Karen tapped the ID card against the desk with a deliberate rhythm. Her eyes narrowed behind her cat eye glasses. She didn't scan the document. She didn't even properly read the name. Instead, she looked up and gave a tight-lipped smirk, the kind people use when pretending not to insult you. "So, this is a business account?" she asked, her tone dripping with disbelief. Alicia nodded once. "Yes, I'm the primary account holder and authorized representative." Karen leaned back in her chair as if she were a detective cracking a high-stakes case. "Interesting," she said slowly, drawing out the word. "Because we usually don't see. Individual clients walk in with these kinds of envelopes and IDs unless it's corporate staff. You understand, right?" The air thickened. The implication wasn't subtle. In Karen's eyes, Alicia didn't look like the type who owned a business account at that bank. Not in this part of the city, not with that skin tone. Alicia inhaled once, controlled, measured. "Everything you need to verify my account is inside the envelope," she said calmly. Routing numbers, business name, registration, and full credentials. Karen still didn't reach for it. Instead, she craned her neck theatrically, looking over the top of the counter like she expected someone else to appear beside Alicia. "Is the business under your name?" "Yes, Alicia Carter." Karen blinked, letting the name hang in the air like a challenge. "Do you have any other ID? Something a little more official? We've had issues before." The way she said "we" made it sound less like bank policy and more like a shared understanding among those who thought the same way she did. She wasn't checking for legitimacy. She was looking for an excuse to deny service. Alicia felt eyes on her from the growing line behind. She could sense curiosity blending with second-hand discomfort, and yet she remained unshaken, still standing tall, still silent, still dignified. She slowly placed her second ID on the counter, offering no further explanation. Karen picked it up like it was a contaminated object, glanced at it quickly, and muttered, "Well, I'll verify this with the branch manager. These things can be tricky. No apology, no professionalism. Just pure, smug hostility masquerading as policy." The woman remains calm and professional despite the public humiliation. Most people would have raised their voice by now. Many would have snapped, rolled their eyes, or asked to speak to a supervisor. But Alicia Carter wasn't most people. She had been in rooms where composure was a weapon, where silence was louder than shouting, so she said nothing. She didn't call out Karen's tone, nor the obvious prejudice embedded in every word. She simply watched, patient and unbothered, as Karen fumbled for a reason to escalate things further. Alicia had experienced this kind of treatment more times than she cared to count in banks, restaurants, offices, even on flights. She knew the script by heart, the polite skepticism, the tone, policing, the disbelief over credentials, and always the burden to prove her legitimacy. But she had learned something far more powerful than confrontation: timing. Alicia remained still, her expression unreadable. Every second that passed added tension to the room. The people in line behind her weren't just watching. They were absorbing every subtle cue. Something was off, and they could feel it. Even the security guard, stationed casually near the entrance, began to shift on his heels, sensing a storm approaching. Karen, on the other hand, was flustered by Alicia's silence. She expected resistance, defensiveness, maybe even attitude. But Alicia's calm unnerved her. "Ma'am," Karen said, her voice sharpening slightly, "if you're going to be uncooperative—" "I'm not being uncooperative," Alicia replied, her voice even and low. "I'm giving you everything you need to do your job." Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. In that moment, Alicia's composure became more powerful than any confrontation. It wasn't anger, it wasn't arrogance, it was undeniable control. And as Karen reached for the phone to call the branch manager, still not fully aware of who she was dealing with, Alicia quietly reached into her briefcase once more, because now the moment had come. And the real reveal was just seconds away. She reveals her identity as a senior federal investigator with the U.S. Treasury. Just as Karen reached for the branch manager's extension, Alicia placed something on the counter, deliberately, with quiet precision. It wasn't a check, it wasn't a second ID, it was a badge, a small metallic rectangle nestled in polished leather, shining beneath the fluorescent lights like a storm cloud parting in the sky. Karen froze mid-dial. The badge gleamed with the official emblem of the U.S. Department of the Treasury, and below it the embossed title read, Alicia Carter, Senior Investigator, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I wasn't here for a standard transaction, Alicia said, her voice steady, calm, yet razor sharp. I was here to observe teller interaction protocols as part of an unannounced compliance review. You could hear a pin drop. The room, once buzzing with casual conversation, fell into a stunned silence. Customers stopped moving. Even the security guard paused mid-step, eyebrows raised, all eyes locked on Alicia and then on Karen, whose face had drained of color. Karen's hand slowly slipped away from the phone. I intended to conduct my audit discreetly, Alicia continued, but given the tone and nature of your behavior toward me, before even verifying my credentials, it's clear my presence needed to be revealed sooner. Karen stammered. I didn't know. You didn't say. You never gave me the chance. Alicia said coolly. You assumed, and in doing so, you revealed more about this bank's internal culture than any report could. A shift happened in the air. The power dynamic flipped like a switch. The woman Karen tried to humiliate now stood as her judge, her evaluator, her reckoning, and the entire branch felt it. Her badge and authority shock everyone in the bank, freezing the entire branch. Time itself seemed to pause. People stood frozen mid-transaction, mouths slightly open, debit cards half extended, conversations halted mid-sentence. The atmosphere inside the branch was no longer just tense, it was electric. Karen stepped back from the counter as if the badge had physically pushed her away. Her fingers trembled, her lips parted in silent disbelief. Alicia didn't raise her voice, she didn't gloat, she didn't need to. Her presence, her title, her badge, they said everything. Just then, the branch manager came rushing over, alerted by the sudden shift in energy. A short, balding man with sweat already forming under his collar, he looked between Alicia, the badge, and his now visibly panicked teller. "MS. Carter," he asked hesitantly, his voice cracking, "is there a problem?" Alicia turned to him with the composed authority of someone who had walked through Washington briefings and congressional hearings. "Yes, a significant one, but not mine. Your teller violated 3 internal customer engagement protocols, made assumptions without account verification, and projected bias in front of multiple witnesses." The manager's face flushed deep red. I assure you, this is not reflective of our standards. I hope not." Alicia interrupted, "because your bank is now under official review for discriminatory service patterns across branches in this district. And what happened just now," she paused, letting her words weigh heavy, "was textbook noncompliance." Gasps echoed softly from behind the velvet ropes. A woman in the back whispered, "She's federal." Another man in line murmured, "That's what you get." Karen, now pale and silent, looked like she wanted to disappear beneath the counter. The manager swallowed hard. "We deeply apologize. This should never have happened." Alicia finally nodded. "You're right, it shouldn't have, and I suggest you take immediate steps to ensure it doesn't happen again, starting with training, accountability, and a change in attitude, especially at the front line." She handed the manager a sealed manila envelope, the official documentation of her position and visit, before gracefully placing her briefcase back under her arm. Then, without another word, she turned and walked toward the glass exit, her heels clicking like a final verdict across the marble floor. No one moved, no one dared. Every soul in that room would remember this moment, not just the shock, but the elegance with which she dismantled humiliation and turned it into justice. And as the door closed behind her, Alicia Carter didn't need to look back. She had already made her point. The branch manager rushes over and tries to contain the situation. The tension in the branch was now tangible, humming through every inch of the air like static before a lightning strike. As Alicia's words echoed, the door to the manager's office flew open with a thud. Out came Mr. Hastings, the branch manager, short, balding, and visibly panicked. His leather shoes squeaked across the polished floor as he hurried to the counter, eyes darting between Alicia and the visibly shaken Karen. "What seems to be the issue here?" he asked, feigning calm, though his voice betrayed his nerves. Alicia didn't rush. She met his gaze steadily and held up her badge once more, letting the seal catch the light. "There's no issue," she said evenly. "There's a systemic failure in your staff's ability to handle customers without bias. That's what this is." Hastings paled. Karen looked down, pretending to shuffle papers. Her hands shook. "I apologize for any misunderstanding," he began, fumbling. Karen here is usually very professional. She must have thought, "Well, you know, sometimes with business accounts, we just try to—" Alicia interrupted, voice calm but firm. "Let me help you out." She didn't think, she assumed, based on how I look, based on nothing more than a bias she didn't bother to hide. She took a slow step toward him, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I walked in here prepared to quietly review your protocols. You were about to receive a clean observation and a cordial report." He swallowed, "But now," she continued, "now I'm obligated to document what I've seen, which includes your teller violating customer privacy by loudly questioning my account status, denying proper procedure, and attempting to dismiss me without basis, all in public view." Customers were still listening, but Alicia didn't flinch. She handed Hastings a folder. "Inside, you'll find my appointment letter, your branch's audit scope, and the compliance survey I was going to send you via email. Consider this an early start." His mouth opened, but no words came out. Alicia gave one final glance toward Karen, who now looked like she might cry. "You should start with mandatory retraining," she said, "today." Then she turned and walked away, leaving the manager and the room in stunned silence. Alicia delivers a powerful warning about staff behavior and discrimination before reaching the doors. Alicia paused, just enough to make every eye in the room lock on her again. She turned halfway, her voice low but amplified by sheer command. "I didn't raise my voice," she said. "I didn't curse. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't have to." Karen looked up, her eyes wet, shame painted across her face. Alicia continued, speaking not just to the staff, but to everyone watching, bankers, customers, and security alike. "I let your employee show who she was without pushing her. She was given the chance to act with respect. She chose condescension." The security guard nodded solemnly. "You see," Alicia added, her voice firm, "discrimination doesn't always show up in slurs or violence. Sometimes it shows up in the way people are dismissed, questioned, belittled without cause, a silence. Not a whisper, not a rustle, not even the sound of fingers typing at the teller desks. Your role," she said, looking directly at the manager, "isn't just to oversee operations. It's to set the standard. When your staff reflects bias, it's a reflection of your leadership or lack of it." Hastings bowed his head slightly, the weight of the truth pressing down harder than any written report could. Alicia walked toward the exit once again, but this time the energy behind her was different. Reverent, respectful eyes didn't just follow her, they admired her. She hadn't just stood up for herself. She had educated, exposed, and elevated the entire room. As she pulled open the glass door and stepped into the sunlight, a voice, soft but sincere, broke the silence. "Thank you." It came from the young black man in line, no older than 20, holding a money order in his hands. Alicia didn't look back, but a small smile played on her lips as she disappeared into the bright day. The branch, still stunned, remained frozen in time, but the lesson, it would echo within those walls long after she was gone. She leaves the bank, having exposed a deep bias in broad daylight. The automatic doors whispered shut behind Alicia Carter, leaving behind a room full of people who had just witnessed more than a confrontation. They had witnessed a revelation. Outside, the sun warmed the pavement and the breeze gently tugged at her blazer. She walked with the same calm purpose she'd entered with, head high, back straight, every step measured. But inside that bank, everything had changed. Behind those glass walls, silence still reigned. No one dared return to idle conversation. Not yet. They were still processing what they had seen. Karen, once smug and dismissive, now sat slumped behind the counter, staring at the edge of her desk like it held the answers to a test she'd already failed. Her hands still trembled faintly, shame radiating from her like heat. The manager, Mr. Hastings, stood in stunned reflection, still clutching the folder Alicia had given him. Her words echoed louder than any reprimand. Discrimination doesn't always show up in slurs. Sometimes it shows up in how people are dismissed. And the customers? They weren't just bystanders, they were witnesses, and what they saw wasn't just a woman defending herself. It was a woman revealing a truth hidden in plain sight. No raised voice, no threats, just pure authority, composure, and facts. Alicia hadn't come to fight. She came to observe, but what she left behind was far more powerful than a federal report. She left behind awareness, a mirror, and not everyone liked what they saw staring back. Her quiet strength leaves a lasting impression and delivers a moral lesson long after Alicia disappeared into the city crowd. The atmosphere in the bank remained changed. Customers who had once looked at the teller line with casual indifference now eyed it with scrutiny. They remembered how easily a woman, clearly professional and qualified, had been doubted, solely because of her appearance. The young black man who had thanked Alicia stood a little taller now. The elderly white woman beside him, who'd watched in quiet shock, whispered to her granddaughter, "Always speak truth with grace. That woman just taught you how." Even the security guard, normally indifferent, lingered by the counter, quietly observing Karen with a disappointed shake of his head. He had seen hundreds of incidents before, but this was something else entirely. In her silence, Alicia had thundered. In her stillness, she had shaken the walls. Her dignity wasn't just armor. It was a message. You don't have to shout to command a room, but you do have to stand firm in who you are. By the end of the day, the branch's internal group chat was flooded with murmurs. Staff whispered about the woman with the badge. Some called it a scare. Others a wake-up call, but all of them agreed on one thing: they had witnessed something they would never forget. Karen was quietly removed from her station by afternoon, sent to HR. The manager began organizing an emergency meeting. A new policy memo was drafted before closing hours, titled "Equal Service for All Clients." But long before the paper, the policy, and the apology, came the lesson, and Alicia Carter, she never looked back. Because her mission was never about revenge, it was about reform. She came, she saw, and through grace, calm, and conviction, she made an entire room stop, think, and see the truth. The final word, when composure becomes the loudest message by the end of that day, the bank branch would never operate the same way again, because Alicia Carter didn't come to make a scene. She came to hold up a mirror. And what she exposed wasn't just a moment of poor customer service. It was a deeply rooted flaw in how people judge based on appearance, not merit. She didn't yell. She didn't retaliate. She led with strength, spoke with clarity, and walked away with her dignity intact, leaving behind a room full of people changed by her presence. What began as a silent visit for a routine transaction turned into a public education on professionalism, prejudice, and power. And what started as humiliation ended in revelation. So, next time someone quietly enters a room, don't underestimate them, because they just might be the one holding the badge, and the truth that freezes everyone in place. And that's the story of how one woman turned quiet strength into undeniable justice.